Welcome back, and for those who are joining us for the first time, I do hope you return. What does this dance mean for Alara and her family? The time may seem long, but stay until the end. It will not be a burden, rather a reward, my friend.
A novel rough draft. A story by Ariel Sparks. Copyright Ariel Sparks 2025. Title: Chronicle of the Seers Orb.
Chapter 6. A Dance with the Dark Sentinel.
The Grand Elder's arrival was as inevitable as the sunrise, a presence that could not be denied. The gentle rap at the door the following morning was almost a caress, a soft echo from the hand that had guided Theodore. Timothy, ever the sentinel, rose to answer it, his hand trembling on the latch. As he swung the door open, the light of dawn framed the silhouettes of the Grand Elder Arafa and Maziba, their forms, stark and commanding. Arafa's eyes swept the room, taking in the tension that coiled around the family like a serpent waiting to strike. Her sage in training, a young woman with a crown of silver braids and a cloak of shimmering tassels, hovered at her side, her gaze a silent question. "Where is Lilith?" Arafa's voice cut through the air with a melody of honey and steel. Her attire was a revelation, a stark contrast to the stately garb she had worn in the grove. The intricate headdress had been replaced by a vibrant head scarf that fluttered with each movement, revealing a thick braid that cascaded down her back like a river of nightfall. The flowing robe she now donned was a tapestry of the colors of the vast lands she had traversed, its soft folds hinting at the curvaceous form beneath. Her boots, crafted from the finest leather, ended at her knees, showcasing legs that seemed to stretch on forever. Timothy, his head at the guardian's knee, stared up at her in awe. He had never seen a woman so tall, so regal, and so otherworldly. "My mother is within," he managed, his voice a reed in a storm. "I shall go get her." He turned and retreated, his legs moving faster than his thoughts as he hurried to do her bidding. Lilith, her apron splattered with flour from her morning's baking, emerged from the kitchen, the soft glow of the hearth casting her in an ethereal light. She had been kneading dough into the shapes of the constellations, an old Vahnder Wood custom for moments of great change, the flour dusting her cheeks like the first snowfall of winter. Timothy, his eyes wide as silver coins in the candlelight, had barely contained his excitement. "Mother," he panted, his voice a tapestry of excitement and fear. "The Grand Elder Arafa is here, with Maziba." Theodore felt his heart leap into his throat. He had been tending the garden, the loam of the earth pulsing beneath his fingertips like the lifeblood of a sleeping giant. The herbs grew fragrant and wild, their leaves an embodiment to secrets of the ancients. Now, destiny's call grew louder, demanding his attention. He hastened into the house, his boots thumping a staccato beat on the wooden floorboards. Lilith emerged from the kitchen, her apron a canvas of flour and sweat. She had been kneading the dough into the shapes of the very stars that had set the date of Alara's fate. Her eyes, those pools of sapphire that had seen the dance of the auroras, searched his face. He nodded, and she knew. The Grand Elder had come. Theodore strode in from the garden, his boots echoing through the cottage. He had been communing with nature, his hands coaxing secrets from the herbs that grew wild and fragrant in the earth. His heart raced like a steed galloping through an endless meadow. Lilith's eyes snapped to her husband's, the fiery determination of moments ago now a smoldering ember of doubt. She knew fate had brought them to this moment, but she could not quell the fierce instinct to keep her daughter within the embrace of their family's love.
"Welcome, Grand Elder Arafa," Theodore said, his voice steady. He stepped aside, his hand on the small of Lilith's back, guiding her forward. Arafa's smile was warm, the kind that could melt the frost from a winter's morn. "Thank you, Theodore. Allow me to introduce my sage in training, Adana. She is of the Nanubala lands, a scholar of nature's marvels in her own right." Adana stepped forward, a slight bow her only greeting, her eyes a vibrant marine green, reflecting a depth of knowledge she seeks. Her skin, a mix of coffee and caramel, smooth as cocoa butter and has a tone lighter than the others. Below her crown of silver braids, her hairstyle was subtle, a river of jet-black curly silk, now gathered in a braid, and was adorned with beads that held their own brand of mystery. Arafa searched the room before settling on Lilith. "Your home is filled with the scent of warmth and love," she said, her voice a gentle caress. Arafa's headscarf, brushed the cottage's low wooden beams, a stark reminder of her towering presence. Her robe, a river of fabric that swept the floor like a royal procession, was cinched at the waist, revealing her wide hips, and at her side a staff that gleamed with a sapphire crystal. It once held Alara's orb, but now the staff was a conduit of power, a declaration of the Grand Elder's authority. Her voice coy as she began, "Yes, indeed. Fate have led us to a cozy abode, but I must admit your cottage appears to shrink under the weight of our arrival." Lilith, trying to hide her nerves, gave a nervous chuckle. "Fate have indeed brought us together," she said, gesturing to the chair by the hearth, its wooden frame carved with the whimsy of a master craftsman. "But I fear our humble home lacks the grandeur of the Grand Elder's chamber." Theodore cracked a nervous smile at his wife's jest. "Indeed, but it holds the strength of 1,000 suns in the hearts of those who dwell within." His voice, a warm caress. Arafa's laughter filled the room, with the sound of a mountain stream babbling over ancient rocks. "Ah, Lilith, your words are as sweet as the nectar of blooming flowers, but we have not come to admire your quaint abode nor to bask in the glow of your wit," she said. "We have come for the girl, Alara." The cottage, once a bastion of comfort and warmth, now felt as if it were holding its breath, the very air charged with anticipation. Theodore nodded gravely. "Of course." His voice a solemn echo. "Alara, come forth," he called. The girl emerged from her room, her eyes wide with curiosity, and destiny swirling all around her. She was a vision of youth and potential, her golden hair a halo in the morning sunlight, her skin as pale as moonlight. She approached Arafa with confidence. Lilith's gaze was a tempest of love and fear as it fell upon her daughter. "Alara," she began, her voice a soft crescendo, "what is it that you wish to know of this journey you must undertake?" Alara took a step forward, her movement light. "The ancients speak of a destiny greater than the stars. But how long shall I be gone? What awaits me in the Whispering Grove?" Arafa leaned on her staff, the crystal atop it pulsating with a soft blue light. "The ancients do not speak in terms of our fleeting human days," she said, her smile enigmatic. "But fear not, for the grove will be your sanctuary and your teacher. There you shall learn the ancient ways of the guardians, and your eyes will be opened to the secrets of the world." Lilith's heart felt as though it were being squeezed by a vice as she watched her daughter stand tall, resolve playing across her features like a sonnet composed by the earth itself. She pressed, her voice insistent. "But why must she go alone? Surely there is wisdom in the company of others." "Now, Lilith, the wisdom of the ancients are as peculiar as the winding paths of a mountain stream. They seek solitude in their pupils, for it is in the quiet of the soul that one truly hears their call." But Lilith was not one to be easily swayed. And what of her heart? Surely it would ache for the warmth of home, for the laughter of her siblings, and the comfort of her mother's embrace? Indeed, but the ancients' wisdom of life are a demanding teacher. Arafa's gaze softened. The light therein held an empathic glow as she continued. "They require dedication and focus, as unyielding as the tides that carve the shoreline. Yet fear not, for there shall be moments of respite, brief interludes where she will be granted permit to return to the embrace of her kin." Lilith's eyes searched Arafa's face, seeking any crack in the facade of stoicism that shielded the Grand Elder's true feelings. "How many times?" she asked, her voice a tightrope of hope and dread. Arafa's expression remained unreadable. "The wisdom of the ancients are not bound by our human calendar. They speak in cycles of the moon and the shifting of the seasons," she replied, her words a gentle yet firm rebuke. "Yet I shall grant you this. She may return twice over the course of her training, once as the harvest moon rises and again when the snows of winter melt to reveal the promise of spring." Lilith's eyes searched Arafa's, a silent plea for more than what was allowed. But the Grand Elder's gaze was steadfast. "Is this truly all that can be offered?" she pleaded. "I shall grant you a rare privilege, Lilith. You may visit her twice before her first return to Vahnder Wood. But know this, it is not without cost. You must come alone, and one of my guardians will escort you to the very edge of the grove. Instruction, do not take kindly to interruptions." Lilith's eyes searched Arafa's, seeking the truth behind the riddle of her words. "When?" she asked, her voice a quiver. The Grand Elder leaned heavily on her staff and said, "When the petals of the lavender bloom fall like tears from the heavens, when the nights grow cold and the first frost kisses the earth, then shall be the time for your departure." Her voice a melodious chant. Lilith's eyes searched the ancient woman's face, finding the truth she sought in the depths of those ageless eyes. "I understand," she said softly. She turned to her daughter, her eyes brimming with the unshed tears of a mother's love. "Alara," she began, "you must be strong. Fate and destiny are fickle and demanding, but if you listen with an open heart, they will guide you to greatness." The Grand Elder nodded solemnly, the light in her eyes a soft acknowledgement of the burden she placed upon the young girl. "Your mother speaks wisely. The path ahead is not an easy one, but it is the path that has been laid before you." Her voice was a gentle breeze through the leaves of destiny. Lilith took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving Arafa's. "I know," she said softly. "I have felt my daughter had a vocation for greater her whole life, and I know their call." She took a step back, her gaze shifting to her daughter, the floral scent of her apron a stark contrast to the gravity of the moment. Arafa then spoke up, saying, "It is finished," the finality of her words hanging in the air as the toll of a distant bell.
Theodore, attuned to the emotive expressions in the room, noticed a flicker of unease in Adana's eyes. Her hands, usually as steady as the trunk of an ancient oak, trembled slightly as they rested upon her staff. "What troubles you, young sage?" he asked gently. Adana looked up, the light streaming in from the windows casting a halo around her braids. "Grand Elder," she began in a tentative voice. "I sense something amiss within our presence." Theodore saw nothing out of place, but soon his gaze turned to Adana, and followed hers to the dusty corner where the chest stood, a silent guardian of secrets long forgotten. His hand tightened around Lilith's waist as his eyes narrowed, searching the room for any sign of disturbance. But all was as it should be, the shadows playing across the wooden floorboards like the dappled light of a forest glade. "Ah, the chest of Vahnder Wood lore," he mused nervously. "It has not been opened in many a moon. Just an old box we made our vault." Arafa's gaze followed Adana's to the corner, her eyes narrowing slightly. With an enigmatic tone she conceded, "Indeed, what is it you sense, young sage?" Maziba, who had been as still as a statue at the door, his hand ever on his staff, took a step forward, his eyes scanning the shadows with a warrior's vigilance. "Perhaps it is merely the echoes of the past," he murmured, his deep voice a rumble of doubt. Arafa's eyes remained fixed on the chest. "The murmurs of the earth are as fickle as the wind," she said, her words a dance of wisdom. "But Adana's gift is unmistakable. If she senses a disturbance, then we must investigate." Maziba took a step closer to the chest, his hand moving to the crystal pommel of his staff. His eyes searched the shadows that clung to the wooden edges like shy lovers in the night. In a serious tone he pressed, "With respect, Grand Elder, I shall stand as the shield between any peril and this family." Adana's gaze remained fixed on the chest, the silver beads of her braids seeming to quiver with the unseen force that emanated from within. "There is an unsteady energy," she murmured. "I sense it holds secrets long buried, and stories yet to unfold." With a grace that belied the gravity of the moment, she reached into her hair, plucking out the cone-shaped trinkets that had lain hidden like jewels nestled in a crown of moonlit silver. She placed them upon her fingertips, and the room grew tense with anticipation. The air thrummed with vibrations as she began to wave her hands over the chest, the metal cones glinting like the eyes of a predator in the night. The chest, an ancient repository of lore and secrets, responded to her touch with a low groan, as if awakening from a centuries-long slumber. The lock, once steadfast and unyielding, quivered like a leaf in a gale, then with a sound like a crack of thunder, it snapped open and fell to the ground, forgotten. Adana's eyes never left the chest as she worked. Her hands moved with the grace of a dancer, the cones glinting on her fingertips like the stars that had ushered Alara's fate into the night. The vibrations grew louder, a crescendo of anticipation that seemed to thrum through the very air. Theodore watched with bated breath, his hand unconsciously reaching for the amulet around his neck, feeling its warmth pulse in time with the tension that filled the room. Lilith clutched the edge of the table, her knuckles white as bone, as Adana's waving grew more frantic, the cones in her hands moving like the wings of a hummingbird, with their metallic song echoing off the wooden walls. The chest, once a silent guardian of Vahnder Wood's heritage, began to quiver, the tremors of the earth resonating through its ancient frame like the vibrations of a distant earthquake. The latch, a relic of a bygone age, trembled and groaned under Adana's relentless onslaught, as if it were a sentinel that had stood too long in the face of the unyielding tides of time. The droning grew louder, a symphony of secrets yearning to be free, their vibrations setting the cones on her fingertips to dancing, their metallic chime a tapestry of anticipation that filled the air. Theodore felt his heart pound in his chest, the rhythm of the vibrations a counterpoint to the thunder in his ears. Lilith's grip tightened on the table, her knuckles stark against the aged wood, her eyes never leaving her daughter, who watched with a mix of curiosity and trepidation. With a sudden snap, the chest's lid flew open, and out shot an object that defied description. It hovered in midair, caught in the invisible embrace of Adana's shield, its form shimmering and twisting as if it were made of 1,000 iridescent scales. It had the sleek body of a dragonfly and the fangs of a serpent, its wings a blur of color that matched the molded copper egg Theodore had forged from ore, years ago. How could this be? Theodore uttered to himself, his eyes wide with astonishment. I built that egg with my own hands. His mind raced back to those long nights in his forge, hammering and shaping the metal under the guidance of the forefathers. It had been a gift for Alara, a token of his love and a symbol of her boundless potential. Now, it had been transformed into something other. Arafa's eyes never left the hovering creature, her expression a mask of calm urgency. Hold it, Adana, she instructed, we must not let it flee. The young sage nodded, her eyes narrowed with concentration as she tightened the invisible bonds that held the creature in place, her hands a blur of movement as she wove the energies into an unbreakable net. What is that? Lilith stammered, her voice trembling like a leaf. She had never seen anything so alien, so terrifyingly beautiful in all her days. The creature's eyes, a swirl of colors that seemed to mirror the very essence of the dark forces, bore into her soul, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Arafa's face was a portrait of grim certainty as she stepped closer to the hovering spectacle. This is a creature of the distant lands, she said, her words a solemn knell. But it has been tainted, corrupted by the touch of the dark cartogeologist. Her tone was as serious as the hush that fell over the room, the gravity of her words a dark cloud that cast a pall over the cottage. Her voice a soft thunder as she continued. The dark cartogeologists are not of our kin. They are shadows that dwell in the crevasses of the world, seeking to bend their power to their own nefarious ends. Theodore felt a cold sweat break out on his brow, the unspoken accusation in Arafa's gaze, as sharp as the frost on the windowpane, for she now knew, he hadn't shared what they discussed with his wife. He interjected. I had hoped that such foes were not aware of what Alara had found in her importance. Lilith's eyes were wide with horror, her hand flying to her mouth as if to stifle a scream. The dark cartogeologist, she murmured, the very words leaving a bitter taste on her tongue. What is that? What do they want with our girl? Arafa's eyes locked on the creature, her gaze a storm of ancient wisdom and unyielding determination. The dark cartogeologist are a splinter from the very core of our order, cast out like embers from a dying fire. She took a deep breath, the room seemingly holding its own in anticipation of her next words. They were once the brightest stars in the constellation of knowledge among the guild of the infinite cartographers. They sought to chart every aspect of the earth, to map every hidden corner of this vast world. But their hunger for power grew like a parasitic vine, she continued, choking the very essence of what we stand for. Our order exists to share the knowledge, to illuminate the paths of those who walk in darkness, not to enslave them to our will. Her tone a thunderclap of accusation. Arafa declared, The guild and the Grand Elders do not always agree, as they seek to share the knowledge of good and ill to all, but we seek to share knowledge to those prepared to receive it. Lilith's eyes searched Arafa's face, her own thoughts a tempest of doubt and fear. What does this mean for Alara? She asked, her voice a trembling leaf in the wind of destiny. It means that she must be vigilant. Arafa said, her eyes never leaving the creature. That her journey to become a guardian is fraught with peril beyond what we had anticipated. The dark cartogeologists seek to corrupt the practitioners, to bend their will to darkness. The creature grew more frenzied within Adana's force field, its movements erratic and jerky, like a leaf caught in a tornado. It hissed and snapped, a sound that sent shivers down Lilith's spine. Arafa's eyes narrowed, and she gestured to the back door. We must take this creature outside, she commanded. The power of my staff within these walls would be as destructive as a tempest in a teacup. Maziba, ever the pragmatic one, stepped forward with a grace that belied his bulk. This way, he said, his deep voice a comforting rumble, as he guided the family into a small, cluttered room. The walls were lined with dusty tomes and ancient artifacts, a testament to Theodore's lifelong pursuit of knowledge. The door creaked shut behind them, leaving them in a cocoon of quiet. Adana's eyes never left the creature as she followed, the chest held aloft by the field she had coaxed into a sizzling field of energy around her. The room was a whirlwind of motion, the creature's wings a blur, as she carefully maneuvered through the cottage's tight corridors. The family were huddled in a state of shock and awe. Maziba's hand was on the latch of the back door, his eyes darting from the creature to the morning outside, where their response grew more frantic. Quickly, he urged, his voice a steady beat amidst the chaos. We must not allow it to escape into the wilds. As they stepped out into the crisp air of Vahnder Wood, the realization grew louder, as if the very earth was alive with the anticipation of what was to come. The sun had crested the horizon, casting a warm glow over the cottage and the surrounding forest, but the air was filled with an eerie chill that seemed to dance in defiance of the day's promise. A flash of iridescence darted past Adana's face, and for a heartbeat, she lost her concentration and the sentinel escaped. A bird, she exclaimed, her eyes widening with surprise, it's a whisper bird. Maziba's gaze followed the creature's flight, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the unmistakable patterns that danced around it. No, it's a trick, he growled. A lure. In a heartbeat, he had moved faster than any of them had ever seen, his hand shooting out with the precision of a hawk's talon. The whisper bird was a mere blur as it darted through the air, but Maziba's reflexes were honed by years of battle. His hand closed around it, the creature's delicate wings fluttering wildly. The bird's shimmering scales transformed into a cloud of glittering dust in his grasp, the dark creature beneath it slipping away like a shadow into the sunlit underbrush. Damn it, he muttered, the words a gruff echo of his frustration. It's gone. Maziba's hand tightened around the chest's handle, his eyes narrowed to slits as he scanned the tree line, searching for any sign of movement. The dark cartogeologists are closer than we thought, he murmured, the words a grim promise. We must act swiftly to protect Vahnder Wood and its inhabitants. Adana nodded, her grip on the chest unwavering as she stepped into the clearing, the earth rising around her like a living shield. That creature is a sentinel, she said, her voice tight with concentration, it's watching us. And we're about to give it a show, Maziba quipped, his staff a blur as he shadowed the sentinel's movements, ready to pounce should it make a break for the fireplace. Adana took a deep breath, focusing the energies into a shimmering field around the chest once more. The sentinel, as if sensing its escape was blocked, darted back towards the house, its movements swift and erratic, like a leaf on a river. Arafa, with a speed that defied her age and stature, shed her flowing robe, revealing a form-fitting suit of leather and suede armor beneath, the material as supple as a cat's skin, and leapt onto the cottage roof with the grace of a black puma. Her eyes tracked the creature like a hawk eyeing its prey, and she moved with a fluidity that seemed to belie the very essence of gravity. It's going for the chimney, she shouted, her words a warning siren in the tense silence. Her staff, a gleaming scepter of ancient oak, crackled with power as she swung it in an arc, sending a bolt of pure light that split the air like the sonic boom of a distant storm. The sentinel recoiled, its serpentine form contorting in a desperate bid to escape the searing brightness. But Arafa was relentless, her body a blur as she somersaulted across the shingles, the wind whipping her cloak around her like the fiery wings of a phoenix. Theodore and Lilith watched from the safety of the cottage doorway, their eyes wide with disbelief. Their quiet life of agriculture and lore had been shattered by this sudden intrusion, and the gravity of the situation weighed on them like a cloak of lead. On the rooftop, Arafa and the Sentinel danced a deadly ballet, each move calculated and precise. The creature, a living embodiment of the Dark One's power, twisted and turned with the grace of a serpent, seeking the shadows of the chimney's embrace. Arafa, a figure of ancient wisdom and unyielding strength, pursued it with the tenacity of a hawk. Her staff, an extension of her will, sang a song of power as it sliced through the air. The Sentinel's eyes, a maelstrom of color, darted from side to side, searching for an escape, its body a blur of scales and fangs. Arafa's voice boomed through the clearing, the sound of thunder in a silent monastery, shouted. Adana, now. The young sage, her eyes still fixed on the creature, felt the power surging within her. Her arms rose, the cones on her fingertips flaring with a light as bright as the noonday sun. The Sentinel, caught in the crossfire of Arafa's relentless pursuit, darted and weaved with the grace of an eel, seeking the shadows of the chimney like a moth to a flame. But Arafa was as unyielding as the mountains of the Serengeti. With a flick of her staff with speed that seemed to defy the very fabric of time, she sent a bolt of pure energy streaking through the air, a silent scream of power that echoed in their very bones. The Sentinel, unable to evade the strike, was swatted with the force of a hurricane into Adana's outstretched arms. Adana's eyes widened as the creature writhed and struggled against the invisible bonds that held it. Her hands shook with the effort of containing its frenetic energy, but she remained steadfast, her eyes never leaving the creature's swirling gaze. The crackle around her grew more intense, a cacophony of ancient secrets and warnings that seemed to resonate with the very air. Adana, Arafa's voice boomed from the rooftop, now is the time. With a grace that belied her age, she leapt from the cottage roof, her staff a blur as it arced through the air, trailing a tail of light that sizzled like a bolt of lightning. Maziba stands steadfast, his own staff glowing with a fierce, primal power that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Come, Maziba, Arafa called, her eyes never leaving the Sentinel that writhed in Adana's grasp. We draw the energies of our staffs and banish this shadow from our lands. Maziba, his muscles taut as a bowstring, nodded once, his staff joining hers in an ancient dance. The air crackled with power, the very fabric of the world seeming to bend to their will. Arafa's voice, a thunderous crescendo, filled the clearing with arcane syllables that sent a shiver down Lilith's spine. Her words were a battle cry, a declaration of war against the encroaching darkness. The Sentinel, now trapped in Adana's unyielding grasp, writhed and bucked like a wild steed caught in a tornado. Arafa's shout of, yield, reverberated through the clearing like the toll of a doomsday bell, and with each utterance, the energy field around the Sentinel contracted, a noose tightening with the inexorable force of destiny. The creature's movements grew more frantic, its body contorting in ways that seemed impossible, as if it were trying to escape the very fabric of reality. The chants grew louder, their cries a symphony of terror that seemed to shake the very foundation of Vahnder Wood. In a flash of light that outshone the sun, the energy field imploded, compressing the creature into a marble-sized sphere of pure power. The air around it shimmered, a cacophony of despair and anger. The sphere hovered in Adana's grip, a testament to the girl's unyielding resolve, a beacon of hope in the face of shadow. Now, Theodore, your amulet. Arafa's voice was a whip crack of command. Theodore, his hand shaking, unclasped the necklace that had been his companion since childhood. The moment it left his neck, the air in the clearing grew denser, charged with a power that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. Arafa took the amulet and held it aloft, the crystal at its center pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Maziba, Adana, she barked, form a triangle around the remains of the creature. The ancients will guide our hand. The groan of energy grew to a fever pitch, their cries a crescendo that seemed to shake the very trees. Then, with a swiftness that could outmatch the swiftest of rivers, Arafa slammed the crystal tip of her staff into the sphere. The world around them was bathed in a blinding light that seemed to burn the very shadows away, leaving only fine dust. As the light receded, the dust hovered in the air, suspended as if caught in a moment of time. Theodore's eyes darted to the amulet in Arafa's hand. With a flick of her wrist, she pulled the crystal from its setting, revealing it to be a perfect sphere of gleaming crystal. Hold tight, she said, her eyes alight with the same fierce determination that had guided her through the centuries. This may be unpleasant. Arafa took the crystal and hovered it above the shimmering dust. The air crackled with anticipation, the tension around them hushed as if holding their breath. In a swift motion, she brought the crystal down, and the dust was drawn to it with the inescapable pull of a black hole. The crystal absorbed the shadowy remnants of the sentinel with a hiss, the dark particles writhing and coalescing until they were swallowed whole, leaving behind a crystal as clean and pure as it had been before the creature's taint had touched it. Maziba, Adana, she said, her eyes gleaming with power, we must ensure this does not happen again. The dark cartogeologists have marked us, and their reach is long. Maziba nodded solemnly. We shall fortify the wards around Vahnder Wood. Their instruments will not easily find us again. His tone was a promise, a declaration of war against the shadows that had dared to touch their haven. Arafa looked to Theodore. The crystal, she barked, it will be returned to you when your daughter comes of age. Until then, it shall remain with us, a bastion against the dark forces that seek to claim it. The family nodded, their eyes on the crystal that now rested in the Grand Elder's palm. It was a stark reminder of the battle that had unfolded before their eyes, a battle that had shaken the very foundations of their quiet existence. Maziba turned to address the gathering neighbors, his voice a mix of reassurance and authority. Folks of Vahnder Wood, there's been a disturbance, but all is well. A wild creature had ventured from the forest, but we've sent it back to where it belongs. No need for alarm. His words were a masterstroke of understatement, a net thrown over the truth to keep it contained. The townsfolk murmured among themselves, nodding and backing away, their curiosity sated by the gentle deception. Arafa's gaze swept over them, a silent promise that their world would be safeguarded. Once the crowd had faded into the embrace of the trees, the trio made their way back into the cottage, the air now thick with the scent of burnt ozone.
Oh my. Shit got real and almost hit the fan for Alara and her family. What is this menace that shattered the calm of the Vahnder Wood morning? Let me know if you are finding entertainment in my story. And please share and subscribe if you have not yet done so. Oh, and return next week for answers as they will start to be revealed. In Chapter 7, The Departure.